Gigs TV, KurtAngleFoods.com. It's been a while. You haven't seen my pretty face in almost a week now. You thought I was gone, I'm sure. You thought you were never going to see me again. You thought that you had seen the last of Jay Pagliaro. Trust me, many have tried, many have failed. You will never, ever, ever see me gone. I will not be silenced. I will not fade quietly into the night. I will stand tall time and time again. I will continue to bring you hard-hitting programming like only I know how to do. It is No Punches TV. Good afternoon. Welcome. I'm Jay Pagliaro. We are live on location here at the Kurt Angle Foods Health Up Cafe at 3000. I'm going to get this address right one of these days.
3100.
What is it?
3100.
3100. God, let me turn around and look here.
It's all crooked.
We're live on location here at the Angle Foods Health Up Cafe on the Strip District in Pittsburgh. You can't miss it. There's big signs on the outside. Get your butt down here. Grab yourself a cool meal. Check out a taping of No Punches TV. Check out Doug's program at 12:30. Check out everything that we do here on Gigs TV. But I'm a little fiery up today. I'm a little animated, and I'll tell you why here in a few moments. But we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. Real quick while you're down here, be sure to pick up one of your brand new TNA t-shirts. We got Kurt Angle, we got Sting, we got the Huckster brother, we got Jeff Jarrett, we got some of these nice shirts. JD, what size do they run? They run size
small to XXL.
Small to double XL. So if you're you want to get one for your kids, you want to get one for yourself, you want to get one for your woman, you want to get one for your whoever. Pick them up. Take a shirt. These shirts cost, what is it, JD? $20?
$19.95.
$19.95. So I was close by a few bucks. But $19.95. Pick up one of these fantastic shirts now. Of course, JD Coach behind the board, running this bad boy for me, making me sound tolerable on the air. And we're going to kick it off today on today's program. What we're going to talk about, we're going to recap UFC 144 in Japan. We have a new UFC lightweight champion. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about what very well could be the end of a line, end of the era, end of a run for a mixed martial arts legend. We'll talk about that here in just a few minutes. Today's poll question, though, and it's been put on my Facebook page. JD, if you could scroll that at the bottom for me there. We got a question on my page, and that is this. Now, the Ultimate Fighter 15 cast has been unveiled. Pretty good cast. We'll talk about some of the names here on the program over the next couple of days. Specifically today, I'll throw some of the favorites out there that you want to pay attention to. However, the big name that's getting the most buzz is a fighter out of Omaha, Nebraska, who holds a win over Jamie Varner, so he is legitimate. His name is Dakota Cochrane. Now, Dakota Cochrane, again, an up-and-coming star in the sport, a talented fighter. If you beat Jamie Varner, who was a former WEC lightweight champion, you're doing something right. Issue is, though, with Dakota Cochrane, we're not talking about his fighting skills. Issues come up that Dakota Cochrane performed in his past in homosexual pornography. So, now, I'm going to get into a debate about this, but my question to you, the No Punches Legion, is this. What are your thoughts, if you're a fighter, if you're a fan, what are your thoughts on, gay fighters? What are your thoughts on potentially a homosexual fighter being in, the sport? Would you want to fight them? Would you want to roll with them? Would you want to train with them? Does it affect you one way or the other? And we've also gotten a note here, according to Dakota, he's not gay. I beg to differ. I mean, that from J. Yayo Hernandez. I beg to differ. Listen, and I had this debate with a dear friend of mine yesterday, okay? And the talk was that there's gay for pay, that he took money to do this, that it was a pay, he played gay to get paid. Listen, I don't know about you folks, okay, and I'm not homophobic, I'm not, anti, my view is this, to each their own. What you choose to be with, who you choose to be with, who you're with, is not my concern. It ain't my cup of tea, but I look down on no man, no woman, it's personal choice, and I respect that. That being said, I'm a father of two, all right. I will do anything just about for my kids. There is no amount of money on God's green earth that would make me do something like that. And that's man or woman, but especially with another guy, because it's against everything I believe. And again, I'm not against homosexuality. I mean, if you are, you are. You have the right to love whoever you want. You have the right to be with whoever you want. It ain't my cup of tea, though. And I'm sorry if you have contact in that manner with somebody of the same gender, it is what it is. It is what it is, in my opinion. And that's the 411 on that. I mean, there's no doing around it. There's no circumventing the facts. And I would feel the same way, ladies and gentlemen, if it was Gina Carano, if it was, Misha Tate, if it was Ronda Rousey, if it was Ariane Celeste that was coming out and saying, I've done, pornographic videos in the past. And, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, as Paul said here, does it really matter? PNP Paul said, does it really matter? To me, I don't care. I mean, I'm not on there, I'm not watching MMA to find a date, okay? I'm not watching MMA to find, somebody that I'm going to go spend the rest of my life with, all right? I've already got that avenue taken care of with my wife. To me, what they do in the cage and how they conduct themselves out of it in terms of a respectful, professional manner, what they do is what they do. Period. End of discussion. What they do, who they do it with, is not my concern. And believe me, we've seen a lot of fighters come and go. We've seen some fighters really disgrace this sport in a bad way. I mean, due respect to them, I can point out half the antics that Judy Browning pulled on Season 8 of The Ultimate Fighter. War Machine. And I'm not signaling these individuals out. Lee Murray. We'll go back a ways. We've seen a lot of fighters that have tarnished this sport's name. Dakota Cochran doing what Dakota Cochran does, even if he was gay, it's not my business. It's not my concern. Just like athletics, just like, baseball, football. We had this issue, we're having this ongoing issue in sports to where there's a question as to whether a gay athlete would be accepted. Listen, if the starting quarterback of the Miami Dolphins, if he's gay, if he throws for 4,000 yards a year and 40 touchdowns, does it bother me what he does in his spare time? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And frankly, we live in a society with athletes to where you've got athletes that have 6 different kids of 6 different parents, 6 different mothers. You've got, stories about ex-athletes committing murders down in Atlanta. You've got the Mike Vick synopsis. To me, what's a gay athlete? Really? I mean, to me, if you've got an issue with it, you're the one that's insecure. And believe me, it's one of the many paradoxes in life. My good friend Andrea Sardella put a post up last night on her Facebook page, and some of the responses just stunk of pure ignorance, stunk of pure stupidity, and the sadness is that it's universally accepted to bash on homosexuality. I mean, that word that I'm not going to say on here, JD, I think you know which word I'm talking about. It begins with an F, and it's also known as a bundle of sticks in England.
Pack of cigarettes.
Pack of cigarettes.
Scotland.
Pack of cigarettes in Scotland. That word was thrown around many times, there were several fighters on there who said they won't train with a gay guy because they don't want to get HIV. And to me, that's stupid. I mean, to me, that's ignorant. And I point blank asked these people, and there was no response to it. The question I have is this: how are you to know in an era where, let's be honest, temptation's high and many athletes fall short of that temptation? We all know the groupies, we all know the rats in wrestling terminology, JD. How are you to know that your opponent, that the guy you're rolling with, didn't, for lack of a better term, sleep with the wrong piece of tail? I mean, to say that just because a guy's gay, they have HIV, how are you to know that your training partner doesn't? I mean, it could be heterosexual, it could be homosexual, it could go all across the board. Anybody that does want to chime in on that, though, please feel free to throw your comments into that thread. If you are in the chat room, give your thoughts on there. Or JD, if they want to give the phone call to us here on Pull No Punches TV, feel free to do so. We will answer all your questions. All I ask is if you do call in, if you do put your questions, if you do put stuff on your Facebook wall, on my Facebook page, refrain from terms that are, dare I say, politically incorrect. Number to call here is 412-281-8900. Again, that's 412-281-8900. Give us a call. Let us know your thoughts. Again, I'm going to simply request that you refrain from terminology that's not, that's going to put us in an uncomfortable spot. I'm not politically correct, ladies and gentlemen, by any stretch of the imagination, but all right, we're talking about we're talking about this and the lights go off. What the hell? Well, this is some freaky ass stuff, man. What is this on my deck? All right, the other day you had snakes. Now what is this? We got my friend Bobby Miller in the crowd. What is this crap, Bobby? What is it?
Buffalo?
Buffaloes? We got buffalo? Have I been gone that long? Snakes have turned into buffaloes, JD? I know I went away for 4 days, but 5 days. What was it? 5 days?
5 days.
I know I've been gone for 5 days, but you got buffaloes on the desk. He's snakes, buffalo. What do we got here? We got Randy Savage and Jimmy Snuka, and we got Tamina on there. We got Evan Tanner, Randy Couture. Those are the naturals. Never mind. But this light shut off every day, Bobby. The lights shut off every day. As you'll see, as you're going to come around more and more, these lights shut off. They dim. I don't. One of these days, I'm expecting either the Boogeyman or the Undertaker, or maybe the ghost of Lee Murray coming out of jail to get a hold of me. But
Sherry.
yeah, sensational Sherry. I'd still hit it. Anyway. You didn't just hear that. Anyway, but that being said, give your thoughts on Dakota Cochrane. Feel free to chastise me over the coals for my really insensitive comment about the late sensational Sherry. Give us your comments now. That being said, I'm going to move on from that topic. I'm going to throw this one out there as well. Now, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of this sport, and it happened this weekend in a lot of cases. And again, I'm not going to chastise anybody. I'll just say this. I love this sport. The underbelly of it sometimes, I'll pass on. Moving on. Topics that we're going to discuss, though, today, other topics, the big news of the program, as we didn't get a chance to talk about it on Monday, as I was sick as a dog, wasn't able to make it in. Yesterday, all our programming, I believe, was postponed because I think JD came down with the flu. Either that or the Undertaker scared him off.
A little business to take care of.
Little business to take care of. So we're going to talk about this today. That, of course, being UFC 144. Now, the big news of the night, of course, was that, we've seen the crowning of a new UFC lightweight champion. That, of course, being Ben "Smooth" Henderson. From what I gathered, of course, I was in Phoenix doing the Coalition of Combat. My co-host here, Bobby, did you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, Bobby, tell me, come on the camera here real quick. Get your face shown here. And give me some opinions here. Now, you may have got to watch the fights. I was busy, preoccupied. I'm only going off what I saw on Sherdog. And folks, this is my good friend Bobby Miller. He's going to be sitting in with me through times to co-host this show. Bobby, your thoughts? I mean, how did that fight break down with Henderson and Edgar? I mean, from what I'm reading on Sherdog, it appeared as though they thought Edgar won. Dana White came out on record and said he thought Edgar won, but if you look at Edgar's face afterwards, he looked to take the worst of the damage. What are your thoughts?
The first round, they were going back and forth. Bendo kept throwing leg kicks that Frankie kept catching, but they're making a big deal about him catching the leg kicks, but he was catching the leg kicks after they landed. And he caught a few knees after the fact. So, I thought Bendo won the first. Don't really remember much of the second. I had it 3 rounds to 2 Bendo. I think it was a really close fight. Frankie, for how small he is in that division, Frankie can go. And I'd rather see him versus Bendo 2 than see Pettis versus Bendo 2. Let Pettis fight the winner of Jim Miller and Nate Diaz. Let that winner fight the winner of the rematch.
I absolutely agree. Now, what round was the one in question, Bobby? What was the one round, do you think, in that fight that really was up in the air, that could have gone either way, that really dictated the pace of the fight?
From what I remember, I have to go back and watch it, but from what I remember, round 1 was up in the air, and I think it was 3 or 4.
So basically, Frankie's slow rounds, basically, because Frankie is a notorious, as we've seen in his 2 fights with Gray Maynard, or the 2 previous fights, not talking about the first one that he lost, but if you saw the last 2 fights with Maynard, he is a notorious slow starter. So, not so much a slow starter, but he likes to fight from behind, so to speak. Wait, that term didn't sound so. Never mind. But, Frankie plays catch-up, so to speak, for lack of a better term. I'm with you, though. I mean, to me, if Edgar had to do immediate rematches against BJ Penn and Gray Maynard, he should be able to get the same benefit and get the immediate rematch against Ben Henderson, especially if the fight was as razor close as people are saying it was. To me, Edgar was, he defended his belt admirably, and it's not Ben that's, going to say no. I think Ben will defend against Edgar again in a heartbeat, because Ben's a scrapper, Ben is a warrior, to the truest sense of the word. But I think that rematch needs to happen. I like your concept about Anthony Pettis. I certainly do think that, he is in line. He's one of those names that deserves a title shot, especially after that decisive win over Joe Lauzon. But to me, Edgar deserves the next rematch. And as you said, put Pettis in there against the Diaz-Miller winner, give them the title shot. Or, I don't want to say put him in there with Guida again, because we've seen that, we've done that. But, put him in there with somebody that's right on the cusp and make that the de facto #1 contender bout. I think Pettis is due for a shot, but at the same time, there's no reason why Edgar should be scuffed of a chance to get his rematch.
Well, my only problem with that is if Frankie wins the rematch, does Bendo get an automatic rematch? This is where it gets tricky with the rematches.
That's true, but where do you draw the line in that avenue? I mean, where do you say, all right? I mean, yeah, you agree that Edgar gets a title shot if they fight again and it's a rematch and it's as close as this one. Do we see the trilogy?
Yeah, do we do 3 in a row? Because you go back since Frankie won the title, he's fought a guy, then fought him again. When he beat BJ, and then he had to beat BJ again. He got a draw with Gray, then he had to fight Gray again.
Right.
Now with this, it'll be Bendo, then Bendo again. Like, throw some more people in there, especially in the lightweight division, which is stacked.
Well, at the same time, though, I mean, let's be honest, the lightweight division is really, I don't want to say thinned itself out, but you've seen things go down to where, you know, you've seen names rise to the top and sink just as quickly. Melvin Gillard, George Soteropoulos. You know, remember when Soteropoulos was considered one fight away from a title shot, and, you know, he wound up losing his next 2? I mean, you know, at the same time, I think right now we're in the same position where we were before the night started. Your top 4 heading into that night, your top 5 heading into that night were Edgar, Henderson, the Pettis-Lazan winner, Miller, and Diaz, and that hasn't changed. But we do have a question from PNP Paul. Top to bottom, that was one of the best pay-per-views, UFC pay-per-views in recent memory. From what I read, Bobby, I can't disagree with that. I can't disagree with that assessment. Just by reading it on a perspective, it just seemed like a stacked card from top to bottom.
I didn't get to watch all the fights. I watched the Lozon Pettis fight. I saw the main event. I have yet to watch the Rampage Bader fight.
That's the one fight I actually did get to watch because, again, I was in Phoenix. I was hanging out with a lot of the power and fitness guys. And that brings me up to my next point. Ryan Bader, arguably the biggest win of his career. Really a nice way for him to bounce back and once and for all eliminate the stench of the Tito Ortiz loss. We'll forget about the John Jones loss because, you know, let's be honest, John Jones is making everybody look foolish in there. And Bader actually fared a lot better against Jones than many of his opponents have. That Tito loss, though, was eliminated once and for all. Bader survives an early slam, overcomes a lot of adversity because, let's be honest, Rampage missing weight by 6 pounds put him at a major advantage. Now, here's the question I want to throw to you, though. Bader wins this fight. Bader wins the fight, and Rampage, you know, where does he go from here? I mean, 6 pounds. He hasn't looked motivated really in a long time since coming back from his holdout with the UFC. Rampage seems to be at the end of his line. Real quick before we get to that, Paul again says it gave the casual fans something to get into and the hardcore fans something to talk about. I can't disagree with that, but thoughts on Rampage?
I don't think he wanted the Bader fight. I think he wanted to fight Japan, but I don't think he could have got motivated. And I'm not taking anything away from Ryan Bader. I think give him somebody he true. If Rashad loses to Jones, give him Rashad again. Give him somebody that you know is going to motivate him. Like Dan Henderson said, Rampage really fights smart. Rampage fired back, said, I fought smart enough to beat you. Put those two in.
That was, I mean, it's not like Henderson's doing anything at this point.
I think he's starting to feel, we know this with that retirement, that he doesn't want to do, I don't think he wants to do this anymore. I think he wants to go do the movies, do the everything. I think he only wants to fight people he'll get in there and be motivated to fight. The John Joneses, the Rashads. Give him somebody he wants.
But at the same time, though, on that token, they did offer him a fight with Forrest Griffin, who is a fighter he has been asking to fight. They offered him that fight in Chicago on Fox, and he turned it down because he wanted to fight in Japan. I mean, realistically, I get your point of view, but in some cases, you cannot have your cake and eat it too. If he's not motivated, step away.
Yeah.
I mean, because there are 1,000 fighters out there who would strangle somebody to have Rampage's spot, especially, you know, his spot in the company. But you're turning into No Punches TV. I'm Jay Pagliaro. I'm joined by my good friend Bobby Miller. We're breaking down UFC 144, which took place Saturday night in Japan. Now, here's a name I'm going to throw out there to you then. Since this is all said and done, Rampage has one more fight left on his contract. Throw him in there with Shogun.
That's been talked about. Shogun has had quoted on saying something like that. I have to find it. It's on MMA discussion on Facebook, but they quoted Shogun in saying that that's a fight he wants. He thinks Rampage wants it too.
Is that the same site that suggested Butterbean and Nick Diaz fight? No, that's MMA Reps, your opinion. My bad. But, I think that, that's a fight. But, I mean, to me, if you can't, and I'm going to take the words of a fighter that I spoke with this weekend, at the event. If you can't get motivated to fight in the UFC, then you really need to find another sport to participate in. Again, Rampage, that might explain why he looked flat against Jardine. That might explain why he looked flat against Hamill, why he looked flat against Bader. Butterbean versus Hornswoggle. I'd pay to see that fight. $59.99. I think Butterbean's gut is bigger than Hornswoggle, but that's I suppose I don't want to discriminate against the midgets. Although my good buddy Marcus Davis yesterday sent me a birthday wish on Facebook and said to me that he tried to catch a midget for me and a midget bit him and gave him tetanus. So I love Marcus, great guy. Other fights that took place, as Bobby mentioned, Joe Lazan versus Anthony Showtime Pettis. Pettis picks up that big win in his career. He not only beats Joe Lazan, Bobby, but he knocks Lazan out, which really is traditionally tough to do. Highlight reel knockout. Lazan's a tough kid, a very tough guy to finish. Pettis finished him. The question bears, I think, to all you people who question the WEC now, are you rethinking your decisions here? Because I know a lot of people question the WEC whether or not those guys are able to hang with the UFC guys. I think at least in the lower weight classes, it's been mission accomplished.
Yeah, if you go back to the last few years of the WEC, when it was Henderson, Cerrone, Varner, they were all having these wars. Everybody said, most of the general MMA fans said, who cares? They're not the best. They're not even in the best lightweight class in Zuffa. They can't compete. They're not going to be able to compete with the UFC's top lightweights. Well, I think Japan proved that theory wrong.
I think since they came in, I think they've proven that they're not the B-leaguers. I mean, Henderson's a lightweight champion.
Even Cerrone.
Pettis is what, 3-1 now in the UFC? Cerrone's 5-1 in the UFC. His only loss was that decision to Nate Diaz.
Yeah.
So I mean,
they've all looked real good in their fights.
Exactly.
With maybe the exception of Guida Pettis, but that was Pettis' first fight, and not the UFC, not making excuses, but look at him now. He looks unreal.
Yeah, he does. He looks like the Anthony Pettis that closed out the WEC as a lightweight champion. I mean, and he continues to improve. These guys, and that's not even talk. We can't even begin to talk about the lower weight classes, the dominance that the ex-WEC guys have had there. Jose Aldo right now, you could very easily argue, is neck for neck with Anderson Silva as the best pound for pound fighter in the sport. You got Faber in the lower weight classes, and now you move down the line, you got two ex-WEC vets fighting this weekend in Sydney, Australia for the right to become the first ever flyweight champion. So the WEC guys have proven they can go. They can go with anybody, even the upper weight classes. You look at guys like Brian Stan, who's had a pretty good run.
Carlos Condit
was
the last WEC welterweight champion. He's now the interim UFC welterweight champion.
Exactly. So, the WEC folks have proven their mettle.
I personally think the transition for the WEC guys has been flawless.
It has, without a shadow of a doubt. Now, as we do have 5 minutes left to go in the program, I do want to throw out there, too, I think the WEC concept is exactly what the UFC should do with Strikeforce. They haven't done it. I don't know if they're planning on doing it or what the case may be, but to me, they've got to do what they were doing with Strike. They've got to do what they were doing with the WEC. Make Strikeforce your feeder system. Make Strikeforce where you send guys to develop. There's no reason, and I think they're slowly but steadily starting to make that happen now. As they're bringing up, they brought up all the heavyweights. You're bringing in guys like Tyron Woodley. Let them develop there, because frankly, not everybody is UFC level, but you don't want to let those guys get away. I think case in point of a guy that they let get away who wasn't quite ready for the UFC, but could have used some more seasoning, was Jake Rochel. Brian Stan, I think, at the time could have used some more seasoning. I mean, you can send these guys down there. It's not necessarily sending them to the minors, but it is what it is. It allows them to get ready for the trip to the big show.
My thing is, if they could do that, or just have a clear direction. Nobody knows what they're doing. Why is everybody...
From Clive, are we talking about former WWF Tag Team Strikeforce? No, we're not talking about Rick Martel and Tito Santana. Next time.
Why are they taking all the top champions away from Strikeforce but leaving Gilbert there?
Tag teams away from Strikeforce.
Champions, I said.
Oh.
Why are they taking all the champions? Like they took Hendo, they took Shields, they took Nick. Why is Gilbert still there?
Good question.
They took Overeem, they took everybody. What are they doing?
Yeah, that's what I want to. That's my question.
This Tyron Woodley, Nate Marquardt fight for the welterweight title coming up. Whoever wins that, are you gonna take him too? What are they doing with them?
Not Marquardt. I doubt not Marquardt. I think Marquardt.
Woodley wins. What does Woodley? What happens with Woodley?
What happens to Woodley?
Yeah.
I think Woodley should be in the UFC right now.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. You know, we'll talk about the UFC dropping a ball. Ultimate Fighter, okay? Season 9 had a chance not only to have Woodley on there, they had a chance to have Tyron, or they had a chance to hear Tito Ortiz.
Santana.
Melissa wants to know why not. She wants to hear about Tito. I can talk about Tito. I mean, Tito and Jen. Never mind. Arriba!
She said, why not? I want to hear about Tito.
You want to hear about
That
Tito?
was about Clive talking about Strikeforce.
Clive talking about Strikeforce and Melissa talking about Tito.
No Rick Martello?
No love for Rick Martel. What about Tom Zink, the Cam-Am connection?
Z-Man.
The Z-Man. We can talk some wrestling here. We got Randy Savage on the desk. We got Jimmy Snuka. We got 3 minutes left. 3 minutes, not to be confused with the old tag team featuring the Lady Umaga and Rosie.
3 minutes.
Wait a minute! Wait a minute!
3 minutes.
Hey, do you know Rico was in MMA?
Oh, God.
I could say something really bad right now about Rico.
I don't. I'm not supposed to talk much from behind the camera, but you know, Rico was an American gladiator.
Yes. So was you know who else was an American gladiator? My good buddy Aaron Simpson, who I met this weekend. They were against each other on that. Yeah, Rico and Aaron Simpson were an American gladiator. So was Gina Carano. I'd like to be. Gina Carano can do whatever she wants to me with that. Anyway, before we spiral out of control here, we've got about 2 minutes left on the program. But, you know, my thought is this, you know, again, I want to see this Cassidy Ultimate Fighter coming up. I want to see what kind of future champs they have. I think JD's grabbing at his board like he's got another question coming up. No? Okay, but end of the day, though, what it all boils down to here, Bobby, is this, you know, I think the Ultimate Fighter dropped the ball with Henderson and Woodley for Season 9 because, let's be honest, there were some okay fighters on there. My good buddy Jason Dent being one. Would Bendo and Woodley have not run through that competition like a sick of butter?
I think if they would have let those two on that show, you wouldn't be talking about a UK sweep, but a US sweep.
I agree, full-heartedly. Can you imagine what Bendo would have done with Hendo?
Yeah, I think Dan Henderson would have had a lot more fun with those two.
Absolutely. Instead of listening to Cameron Dollar bicker back and forth about how many women he supposedly did the dirty bird with.
We've had this talk before. I think what the people not on the show is better for their career. Yeah, you get pushed in the limelight right away, but look at the guys that got turned down. John Jones,
John Fitch,
Frankie Edgar, Ben Henderson, Tyron Woodley. These are all top-level champions.
Yeah.
Tyron Woodley could be a champion after his next fight.
But at the same time, though, what would it have done for the credibility of the show if you'd have had these future champs on there? Now, I do think we do have a question, JD. Go ahead. We got to wrap it up. All right, we do have to wrap up this program. Remember, Pull No Punches can be seen on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and search for GYGS TV. That's Gigs TV. Search it. You can watch us here on the program. We will be taking this Friday off for Pull No Punches Radio, I do believe at this point. But starting next Friday, we will have a new home, new mentality, same attitude. We're not going to be handcuffed anymore. You know, not that we were before, don't get me wrong, but we're going to continue to grow from this. We're moving on to big things. We're going to continue to roll. We wish everybody the best in their future. We're going to continue to grow from here. Check out our new website. We'll be open up soon at www.pullnopunches.info. We're going to have our own site, and we're going to continue to do what we do best every Friday night. And again, new show, same attitude, different home. That being said, we're going to wrap it up for today's program. For my co-host, Bobby Miller. Bobby, great job today in your debut.
Thanks for having me, Jay.
You're welcome. And, of course, for my main man, the coach behind the board, JD Coach, I am Jay Pagliaro. We will see you tomorrow here on Pull No Punches TV. And remember, if it ain't happening on Pull No Punches, it just isn't happening. We'll see you tomorrow.